Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, psychosomatics. Is there psychosomatics in every illness? What is it? How do emotions transfer into the body, right? What's actually happening? And how do you get out of this state? Psychosomatics is always fascinating and inspiring because it's a topic that seems to resonate with everyone. You realize, well, there's probably something to it, maybe it's true. But at the same time, it kind of feels complicated and unclear, and very often there are pauses left between the lines. So today, we need to lay everything out clearly and in an organized way. What, how, why, and most importantly, what to do about it. Today, I want our session to be interactive. Not just me telling you things, but I want you to respond, to share your feelings, so that by the end of today, you'll leave here changed. Does that work for us? Great. And the first thing I ask of you, let's write down what's bothering you right now. Looks like some of you have already started, right? Heaviness in the stomach. Excellent. We're going to go through all of this now, okay? Heaviness in the stomach. So, what's bothering you? Is there any discomfort, emotional or physical? Do you have any diagnosis? And have you done anything about it? Write it down. All right. And while you write, I'll have a little joke, okay? I'll make a joke. It always happens. You're hosting a live stream and you ask people what diagnoses they have, what issues they're dealing with. And often people ask, well, there's always that one person who writes, just go see a doctor, go see a gastroenterologist or someone else. And it always sounds kind of funny, because obviously, the person has already been, they've already tried, and not just with one doctor, right? So, share your experiences too. They've tried one thing, then another, and a third, but still can't cure it. Either there's no progress at all, or after a while everything comes back, or something develops and just doesn't go away. Have you ever been in that situation? Digestive issues. Thyroid problems, right. Vision, psychosomatics. I still can't solve them. And how do you decide what to do? Write about that too. That's also really important because very often it feels like I'm doing everything, but in reality, it's like I'm not really doing anything. Varicose veins. Allergic rhinitis. Stomach issues too, yeah. They show up as soon as I leave the house and then go away after a while. That's really interesting. We'll go over that too today. Systemic lupus erythematosus. Been on hormones for more than 15 years, with occasional flare-ups. Constant migraines, stomach pains, 5 years on antidepressants, but nothing helps. Nearsightedness, yes. So let's start from the very beginning. When we talk about psychosomatics, it means that our body is trying to help us with something. That's the main concept of psychosomatics in general. It's not a punishment. It's not a malfunction. It's not something broken. It's not some kind of accident. It's really that in life. Oh, the door. In life, yes, we find ourselves, or have found ourselves, and usually it's both, in some kind of stressful situation where we got stuck. Our feelings got stuck. Our sensations got stuck. Our emotions got stuck. And we couldn't deal with it there. And this event was unexpected, dramatic, and isolating for us. In other words, it really is some kind of shocking, stressful situation. For example, a woman who has a skin condition. Yes, she has rashes all over her body. When she comes to my program, she starts working. The first thing she discovers is that she currently has stress in her life. What kind? She has tense relationships with her relatives. Yes, she lacks attention, warmth from her mother, and support. They live separately. But still, every time she talks to her mother, she feels like her mom wants to jab at her, wants to hurt her somehow, wants to get under her skin. Inside, she feels, I'm a bad daughter. there's something wrong with me. I don't get enough support, warmth, connection, or love. And from time to time, this trigger comes up, and that's why her skin condition doesn't go away. When she digs deeper, yes, with the help of practice, she finds the story behind it. In other words, these feelings don't just come out of nowhere. These feelings go back to early childhood, when she was sent to live with her grandparents because her mom and dad had to work. That's the kind of situation that happened. So she was sent to her grandparents for a certain period of time. Not for a day, not for a week, not for a month, but for a long period. And there, she feels unwanted. She feels unimportant, insignificant, abandoned there. So this is, let's say, the child's first experience where she felt this kind of separation from someone important and significant to her, right? And that's when this program gets recorded. But at that point, she doesn't have any skin symptoms. Right, absolutely not. But then she grows up. Right, but the stress has already happened. It's already settled in the tissues. That program is already there. Right. She grows up, goes to adolescence, school, college, first love, and her first boyfriend. Well, as it usually happens, you know how it is, right? There are situations where he turns away, or there's something going on with her friend, those kinds of passions and dramas. And she feels that betrayal. She feels abandoned. At that moment, she doesn't realize that she is basically replaying the same record, the same program that was set in childhood. But she just feels terrible. How could you? You're a jerk. You're a bastard. I don't even know if you're allowed to say things like that. Anyway, all these unpleasant feelings come up, and she starts to get her first skin breakouts. But who would connect that to emotions? Who would link it to a separation conflict? No, she goes to the doctor, right? To a dermatologist, and they tell her, oh, well, maybe it's an allergy, maybe it's not. Some ointments and stuff. That is, doubts have already begun that something is wrong with me. That issue passes. The ointments helped her. The pills helped her. But what really happened? Did she actually resolve that conflict? Life goes on. Her first husband, her first man. Yeah, everything's fine with him. And then what happens between them? Divorce, separation. And at that moment, she starts having serious skin problems. The situation gets worse, and from then on, it becomes a constant issue for her. And not only did she end up divorcing her husband and being alone, but she also calls her mom, looking for support, but she can't find it. And her mom, acting as a trigger, brings up that situation again. In other words, look, there are different periods in life: the man, the breakup, and the mother. But at the root, there is a key conflict. That is, the body can't process this state of separation. Why does the skin react? Because the skin, yes, what is it? It's contact, it's attention, it's warmth, it's support. And when we lose a loved one and can't process it psychologically, then in the active phase, our body experiences numbness, ulceration occurs, which we actually don't see. Why? Because in the active phase, we're only thinking about what we're missing. Our thinking becomes compulsive. And in the recovery phase, that's when these skin rashes start to appear. If I don't understand what psychosomatics is and I don't know how to work with my feelings, it takes root even deeper. So, for example, how did she come to us? I'm in a complicated situation. I don't understand if I have an allergy or not. I'm a young woman. Yes, I'm divorced. I want a relationship. I want to get married again. But I just can't look at myself in the mirror. I have these terrible breakouts. I don't love myself. I don't like myself. By working on herself, the skin breakouts go away, and then she starts to like herself. Even when the breakouts haven't gone away yet, because a sense of safety appears inside. Does the topic I just talked about resonate with you? I specifically shared this case with you so you could get some understanding of how this works. I always like explaining things using real-life cases like this. Yeah, Vadim, you're awesome. This works for us. Let's keep going. Or, Vadim, I don't get a thing. Can you speak Russian so we can at least understand something? Ha ha ha. Write your thoughts. And we're moving on. The diagnoses you just wrote to me. I want you not just to listen to what I tell you or what I show you, and then leave with some theory, like from a textbook. I want you to take a look at yourself, even just a little, and think about what's really going on. And now I'm going to go through the lessons from the Don't Believe, Check Practicum, focusing on specific practices that will help you understand what's really happening. And the first thing is, by the way, yes, I can't get past this question. There are abusive relatives around. I used to have panic attacks. I got over them, but for the past year or so, I've been struggling with tension in my shoulders. I can't relax without tranquilizers. A guy, 27 years old. Oh, so you're not even talking about yourself. Well, look, the issue isn't really the toxic relatives, right? You wrote abusive here, but it's more about my feelings toward these relatives and how I interact with them. Most likely, what happens to us in life is what we allow to happen. Yeah, a 27-year-old guy shouldn't let himself be treated that way, right? So, in the message you wrote, what's going on with the guy? The guy has issues with self-identity, with being a man, right? He has family conflicts. He's not separated if he keeps allowing himself to be treated like that. And most importantly, he has self-esteem issues and no connection with himself. That's what these symptoms indicate. So, the first lesson of the practicum is about childhood traumas. And as I've just told you, whether we like it or not, most of our reactions here and now have their roots in childhood. In general, our specialists, psychologists, and psychotherapists say that by the age of 5, all our response patterns are formed, and after that, we just keep repeating them. We might like that. It seems to us that we're adults, that we're free, right? The world belongs to us, our reactions belong to us. But in reality, that's not the case. Day after day, we keep replaying the same record from childhood, where we didn't get enough love, where we lost our sense of safety, where we were frustrated, where it felt like the ground was pulled out from under us, where something dramatic, unexpected, or shocking happened. And that's where we form certain conclusions about ourselves, the world, and the future. Let me give you a few examples. For instance, there's a childhood trauma known as abandonment trauma, right? That's when a child is rejected, abandoned, or there was some kind of separation. So it's more of an internal, subjective feeling that someone has, that they were abandoned. And how can this show up? If you recognize yourself here, go ahead and wave your hand. This could be an adult who, first of all, feels unnecessary in life. They might have a family, kids, a husband or wife, relatives, you name it, but they still feel like an outsider in all of it. No one loves me, no one accepts me, I'm not important, I'm not needed, I feel abandoned and unwanted. No matter how many gifts I get, no matter how many compliments people give me, it doesn't make me feel any better. And this person says that everyone treats them badly, doesn't listen to them, doesn't understand them, because they see the world through the lens of this trauma. And maybe people aren't actually hurting them that much, but that's how they feel, that's how they experience it. They always feel like someone is offending them somehow. Maybe it's at home, maybe at work, maybe with friends. It doesn't have to be everyone, right? But somewhere, something triggers this state. What will happen to this person? They might be overweight, they might have swelling. Either way, they could also be underweight, right? They might have skin conditions, and they definitely have self-esteem issues. Problems with expressing themselves to the world, with self-expression, right? Or most importantly, there's no sense of safety, no feeling of happiness or love in their daily life. That's if they keep replaying this trauma. If they suppress this trauma, the situation isn't any better. They themselves become the person who leaves. You know, that's how I used to be. Hello. Is that okay? I didn't have any serious relationships until I was 28, and I used to think, oh, this is silly, this nose isn't right, this or that. Someday I'll meet my true love. Until I went and worked through this issue, I realized that, in reality, I was afraid to go deeper, afraid to take the next step into a serious relationship, because I was scared of being abandoned, scared of getting hurt, scared of being wrong. As soon as it came to the surface, like popping a pimple, I felt relieved. And 6 months later, I met my beloved wife. We've been happily married for 9 years now. That's it. So, for those who recognize this, that's how this issue plays out. How might a person try to sublimate this issue? They constantly get involved in things, trying to reconcile people, patch things up for someone, doing something where no one even asked for their help. People might tell them off, and then they get offended. I was just trying to help, right? They stick their nose where it doesn't belong, just to avoid dealing with themselves. This is one example of this kind of trauma. In reality, we have 9 key childhood traumas that we keep replaying. That's why our profession, whatever you're doing now, is not a coincidence. The partner you chose is not a coincidence either. In fact, nothing that happens in your life is random. Now, just imagine yourself as a child. Maybe picture a childhood photo of yourself. Maybe you're in shorts, a little dress, sandals, maybe at a school event or something. Just recall that childhood photo first. Remember? I think everyone has those photo albums. Now, imagine that child, your childhood self, at the moment when they lost their sense of safety, when they lost themselves. What conclusions did they draw about themselves, about life, about the world? What did they feel was missing? Just imagine it. Connect with that feeling. Maybe I've already talked about this before, and maybe something has already come to your mind. Write it down. Write down what came to you. What event in this child's life deprived him of love and security? When we talk about childhood trauma, it's about love and safety. Another one. While you're writing, another common trauma is the so-called trauma when parents were constantly busy and didn't have time for their child. Right. They were caught up in their own routines and affairs. I don't know. Maybe they were even dealing with their own depression. And it's not just that they didn't have time for the child. They didn't have time for anything at all. They were really struggling in life, right? We see this very often in practice. And then, if the child replays this trauma, they feel as if they don't exist, as if they're invisible, as if they don't matter. And the first way this trauma plays out is in people who, it's like they're invisible, like they don't exist. Everyone else is important, everyone else is needed, but it's as if no one notices me. And maybe even in your office, among your friends, or at work, there are always people like that, as if they just don't exist. They're like invisible people. This isn't a coincidence, because that's how they feel inside. Or in another scenario, when they suppress this trauma, what happens? Hyperactive. These are hyperactive children, hyperactive adults, who always try to draw attention to themselves, always saying, "Oh me, I can do this too. And I can do that. I can do everything." They don't do this because life is good, right? Here, Oksana writes, I remembered a situation from my childhood when my mom was hospitalized. That was a huge stress for me. That's when you lost your sense of security, and you still live in that state. What conclusions did you draw from that experience? Oksana, please write to us. My parents didn't hug me, didn't praise me. Is that right, Svetlana? I lacked warmth and support. So, when you weren't praised or hugged, what conclusions did you come to, Svetlana? There was another question here. I missed it. Oh, what a shame. I won't be able to find it now. Yes, so headaches. And accordingly, you might ask, Vadim, were there childhood traumas? There were. Right. These are our defense mechanisms. How can they show up now? Well, they can show up as headaches. That's what we just wrote down. What is a headache? A headache is when I feel stupid, when the problem is because of me, helplessness, frustration. In other words, I've lost my sense of self-worth. How can that happen? Some kind of stressful situation occurs. She is neutral, she is ordinary. We constantly experience some kind of stress in our lives. But after this stressful situation, I devalue myself. I'm stupid, I'm an idiot, I should have done better, thought better. So, this kind of deep self-criticism kicks in, and after that, the person gets a headache. There's even a concept called weekend headaches. That's when a person is under stress at work all week. Everyone's there. I have to withstand this world. Everyone's pressuring me. Relatives, colleagues, anyone you can think of. But on the weekends, you can disconnect, relax, and that's when your head starts to hurt. Why is that? Because you've been under stress all week, and on the weekend, there's finally a release, actually. Anyone with headaches, does this sound familiar? That's the first thing. And yeah, they left me all alone. And the second thing is, when we want to be better in life, we can't relax, can't enjoy what we're trying to prove. I have to have the best husband. I have to be the perfect wife. My kids have to be the best, and they need the best education. And just like that, the stress record starts playing. And then what? Headaches, lower back pain, thyroid problems. Why? Because I'm rushing, trying to keep up, trying to run away. Right. If I don't make it in time, something terrible will happen, right? It's a conflict of speed. But that's not true. Nothing will happen. The world won't change at all if you. When a child has headaches, the first thing we look at is the mother's condition. The mother is devaluing herself. Second, it means the child has already been taught to devalue themselves. Whenever something doesn't work out for them, they immediately think, it's my fault, right? That's why you need to, first of all, work on yourself. Second, you need to start teaching your child new behavior, that what they're doing is nothing to be afraid of. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself. If something doesn't work out, you are still loved. We love you and accept you just the way you are, even if you make mistakes or something goes wrong. Is that clear? So the first topic is childhood trauma. Everyone needs it. Absolutely everyone has a trauma that is currently taking away your peace, your sense of security, your love, and every day, in addition to your regular job, you're also doing inner work, trying to appear a certain way, trying to be someone, trying to save yourself from the trauma you didn't process in childhood, right? There are 9 key traumas. In the workshop, don't believe it? Check for yourself. We'll go over this. The second topic is forgiving your parents. What does that mean? We didn't grow up on a tree or in a garden bed. We were raised by our parents. They are our models for what it means to be a man or a woman. In other words, they are our pluses. They're like examples, right, of our world. Because as children, we spent a lot of time surrounded by these examples. But they're also our survival mechanisms. Mom and Dad used to argue, and now I might, for example, be in a relationship and stay silent all the time. Why? Because I'm afraid that if I say something, we might argue, or even get divorced, for example. Even though, really, you could just say what you like or don't like in life. The person just can't. Their throat hurts, their head hurts, their lower back is always tense. She's afraid to do something wrong, so that childhood experience doesn't repeat itself. Just as an example for you. Right. Or she doesn't get into relationships at all, saying, I need a career. I don't need men at all. Who even knows what men are for? I don't know either. That's probably why I don't have any, right? For example, that's what she thinks to herself. That's what her mind tells her. But in reality, it's the fear of going through another breakup. By the way, it's the same thing when a woman can't get pregnant. Very often, we find a story of childhood trauma because that pain hasn't been processed. I haven't grown up myself. I'm afraid the same thing could happen to me, so that's why I can't get pregnant. Who here relates to these topics? We'll have a separate session just about parent-child relationships. I've prepared a great diagnostic tool for you there. Be sure to follow my broadcasts, okay? So, let's move on. Why do you need to let go? Why do you need to forgive? Not so that someone will think something good about you, but so that inside you stop defending yourself from something that doesn't actually exist anymore. From that divorce, maybe your parents' divorce, or that crazy dad who drank, and now you're afraid your husband will be like that, right? From that mother who suffered, and now you're afraid of becoming the kind of woman who will also suffer and carry the whole family on her shoulders. That's why you need this, to free yourself from these inner images, these scenarios, and finally start to breathe deeply. So, people come to us, by the way, with autoimmune diseases. When people come in with autoimmune diseases, in 90% of cases, it's a parent-child issue where the person has done what? They've activated a self-destruction program. But why turn on that program? Specifically, it's when parents gave me this worldview that there's something wrong with me. I devalued myself so deeply that I'm destroying myself. Clear? Yes? Alright, let's move on. Yes, so, forgiving your parents. The next topic is self-acceptance, but it follows from the previous one. If we don't know our childhood trauma, if we haven't forgiven our parents, we can't accept ourselves. It's impossible. Why? What are we really? We perceive ourselves based on our inner image. That's shaped by how we were treated in childhood. It's also shaped by how we talk to ourselves every day. It's about the conclusions we drew about ourselves in stressful situations. Like, am I doing things right or wrong? Am I good or not good enough? This is how our inner image is formed. Let's do a little self-assessment together. Do you need to work on accepting yourself? Take a deep breath in and exhale. And you'll say to yourself, I love and accept myself 100%. I love and accept myself 100%. Yes, just say this phrase out loud. Type a plus sign if your body relaxes, or a minus sign if nothing happens, if there's no relaxation at all, or if something in your body tenses up somewhere. Write it down. And once again, just start accepting yourself. Sometimes a girl writes to me and says, Vadim, how do I accept myself? What does it mean to accept? Do I need to take a bath, read a book, go to a spa? How do I accept myself? I don't know. Should I buy myself a dress, get myself a toy? No, accepting yourself means understanding who you are and what drives you from within. It means knowing your childhood trauma and, well, putting your parents in their place, asking them to. And then you start to perceive your inner self differently, in a new way. Here's a story from my own experience. A girl once came to my session, and she was dressed totally like a guy, jeans, a t-shirt. I don't mean anything by it. Girls can dress however they want. But this one really acted like a guy. And she had, well, autoimmune issues, a bunch of health problems she just couldn't get rid of. And the first thing I do with her is use a technique from the 3rd lesson on self-acceptance from the Don't Believe, Check workshop, which is about seeing your own image, seeing how you perceive yourself. And she sees herself as something disgusting, something repulsive, something you wouldn't even want to come into contact with. And when we do the practice, she starts to relate to herself differently. She changes her inner image. She changes the way she perceives herself. And at the end of the exercise, she's sitting there, content and happy, having already forgotten about her ailments. Everything is good for her. And the next day, when she comes, well, not the next day, but after how long? A week later, 2 weeks later, she comes to the next session. She comes in a dress, not in jeans, not in a t-shirt. She says, Vadim, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to wear a dress. Somehow, I feel like something in me has changed, she says. I don't KN. Is that even normal? I say, when a girl wears a dress, that's perfectly normal. Relax, I've got you. And after a while, she got a boyfriend. And after some more time, she moved out from her mom's place, started living on her own peacefully, and all her illnesses, all her problems went away. Right. Not because she moved out, not because of anything else. It's because she found herself on the inside. She understood herself. These are the important points I want to get across to you. Psychosomatics isn't just about going somewhere, remembering something, or changing something. It's a bit more complicated than that. It's kind of like a layered cake inside that you have to take apart. And look, soon I'll be opening up registration for my workshop called Don't Believe It? Check it out. I haven't held it for a year and a half. Recently, for those of you who follow me, a girl wrote to me and said, I've had such amazing results with my health, in my life, everywhere. I said, wow, really? Why haven't I held it in so long? I really should do it again, because there are some awesome techniques in there. So sales will open on the 1st of the month, so set yourself a reminder. Okay? I rarely hold it. The last time was a year and a half ago. I definitely don't plan to repeat it again this year. This is the most affordable workshop, the most accessible program. It lasts for a month. There are 10 lessons. I'll tell you about them in detail now. The lessons are released twice a week. It's a moderate, comfortable pace, especially now in the summer. You'll have a curator assigned to you. You join the program with your specific issue. What's going on with you? Gut issues, autoimmune problems, right? It doesn't matter what the issue is. And the curator starts working through your topic with you using these practices. What's practice number 1? It's finding your childhood trauma. Why am I pushing myself so hard right now? Why am I suddenly stressed out for no reason? In the family, at work, wherever it might be. Of course, the brain says it's all their fault. And because of them, I'm getting anxious. If I had different relatives, a different husband, a different wife, a different job, then everything would be fine for me. And for those who think like that, stop thinking that way. That's a trap. You're digging yourself into a hole. No, it's me who feels this way. I'm the one who created these conditions for myself, and I can get out of it. That's why I need to understand. My trauma is dragging me down, right? We heal the trauma. Second, It's about forgiving your mom and dad. Forgiveness is very important. Often, we have this resentment, this anger about not being loved enough, not being given something, or being hurt. And it sits so deep inside that you don't even notice it. But your life is falling apart because of it. Let me give you an example. Just yesterday, well, not exactly yesterday, but a few days ago, something happened. There's this man, a successful entrepreneur. He has a lot of businesses. Everything seems to be going well for him, but there's a problem. Some of his businesses are successful, some aren't. They're falling apart. And overall, he's not feeling well. He has some health issues. There are certain things going on. And he says, I love my parents. Everything's fine. There are no problems at all. And he does everything he can to avoid talking about this topic. I say no. When someone says everything is fine, that's exactly where the real issue is hidden. Because when a person says, yes, I have problems, I'm working on them, that's already a good sign. Self-criticism is a sign of being reasonable. Running away claiming everything is perfect, that's always about covering things, hiding them. That's just how the brain works. But it's a skill. I've been in this field for 10 years, so, as they say, I've developed a sense for it. I tell him, no, wait, what do you want from life right now? And he doesn't understand. He says, I don't know. I want this and that too. So he has no understanding of what he wants. No understanding of his own desires or feelings. In other words, what I feel, what I want, it doesn't matter. And we find this story from his childhood, where his dad dismissed him, saying, it doesn't matter what you want, go weed the garden, do this, and so on. And it turns out that, on one hand, this is his strength, because he ignores his feelings, he hides them, he suppresses them, and it's as if they don't exist, as if the weather is always good and always the same for him. But the weather is different every day, right? And this prevents him from hearing his true desires, his real feelings. And I tell him, tell your dad that your feelings and emotions matter. And just this realization actually relaxes him. It already gives him a great dynamic in life. In other words, he starts to connect with himself. So take a look at yourselves. Who here feels like they have no desires, right? You just don't know what you want. You're just stuck in some kind of survival race. Maybe the problem is exactly that. You think your emotions and feelings don't matter. That's the picture you were given. Now you live for others, for your husband, for your boss, for your friends, trying to make everyone happy except yourself. Because you don't know yourself, you don't understand yourself, right? Here, forgiving your parents is extremely important. Everyone needs to do it, and after that, life just changes. I have examples. Girls who did these practices, and their fathers, who had disappeared, like sailors and pilots, actually found them. And life changes completely and dramatically. The third practice is self-acceptance. This is about getting to know your inner self and boosting your self-esteem. Who am I? Once again, headaches, spine problems, muscle and joint issues, all of that comes from self-evaluation. Of course, it's easier to believe that my body is falling apart because I move too much or too little, or because of my age. Like, I'm already 30 or 40, or something else like that. But believe me, what really destroys our musculoskeletal system from the inside is the feeling of guilt from helplessness. The sense that there's something in life I just can't do, and it eats away at me, right? But you can't understand this if you're not familiar with yourself. For example, I personally do this practice regularly, at least once a week, self-acceptance, and it really helps me. Let's move on. Working through grief, working through breakups. If someone had told me a long time ago just how much grief really affects us, it would have changed a lot for me. A lot of our health problems are actually connected to the fact that a person hasn't fully experienced or cried out their feelings, and those emotions get shut away. Honestly, sincerely, take a moment right now and think, where in your life do you still feel regret over someone who's actually no longer with you? Maybe they're gone. Maybe they've already passed away. Or maybe they just moved away. Maybe there was a breakup that was messy, unpleasant, hurtful, or painful. And you're still sitting there with that wound, unable to do anything about it. Because this story was about two people, but the other person is gone, and you're left alone with it, unable to put an end to it, you know? Yes. That's why the technique of mourning, the technique of saying goodbye, is the next lesson. Next, we will work through fears related to health. Why? Because this can be a locking conflict. A lot of people try to heal themselves, maybe with medication, or, I don't know, other methods, or even psychosomatics, but they just go in circles. I keep working and working, but I can't heal myself. Today someone wrote to me about vision. But do you really believe that you can get better? Do you believe that your eyesight can actually recover or not? Or maybe, deep down, it's actually dangerous for me to get better, right? Because my eyesight isn't getting worse just for fun. It's because I want to erase some dramatic situation, right? Imagine this. You're in the room, and next to you is a disgusting, repulsive, unpleasant person. Gross, right? And on top of that, they're being nasty to you. Just like that, you know? But you can't leave this room. That's it, the end, finito, la comedy, right? Everyone will arrive. What happens? Your body will start to help you. What could happen? Your eyesight might start to get worse so you don't have to see that disgusting person. Right. You might start to hear, What? Who's disgusting? What? Going to get bread? Go ahead. Right. What's going on with you? Your teeth might even start to ache. Because I'm angry. I want to bite, to gnaw at that creature. But I can't let myself do it. Education allows it. Or maybe I just feel weak, right? Your spine might start to give out. Your bladder might act up. Hello? Cystitis. Why? He's crossing my boundaries, you know. Wouldn't you? But I can't run away. I can't do anything. So my bladder just feels like it's going to burst. Do you see how this works? So, the situation might be exactly the same, but different people react to it differently. And some people might not react to this situation at all. Exactly. And that's how we need to understand this story. So, it's the fear related to illness, right? The fear related to health. We go into this topic in detail. I give you a diagnostic there, what you're afraid of, where you're stuck in life, why you don't believe you can get better. Often people come to us and say, Vadim, I swear, I believe I can get cured. Right. I ask, so why can't you? I don't know. For some reason it just doesn't work. They come, do this practice, and say, damn, so that's where it's buried. Turns out there's some kind of suggestion, a suggestion from some specialist, and you're supposed to be sick your whole life. And the person believed it, right? I'll finish telling you about the practices that are waiting there, and then I'll start answering your questions. All right? Yeah. Just so I don't lose my train of thought. So, fears related to health. The next topic is allergies. Allergies in the context of if you have a specific allergy, like to a certain food, pollen, or anything else, we work through it. I explain in detail what allergies are from a psychosomatic perspective, and we address it. Plus, allergies in the sense of if something in your life irritates you. An allergy to a person. You get what I mean? Who here feels uncomfortable after talking to someone? Someone wrote today, I leave the house, and my stomach stops hurting. That means at home, you're reacting to someone. Who's at home that you don't want to be around? Or here's another example, a guy. He has a runny nose. Allergy. I ask him, what are you allergic to? He says, I don't know. They say I'm allergic to everything. I'm constantly suffering, always on these pills and with these handkerchiefs. Some people collect cars. I collect handkerchiefs. So he jokes about it like that, right? And when he does the practice, when he works through this situation, what happens? Due to certain circumstances, he has to live with his relatives right now. That's his choice. He has his own reasons for needing to do this. But the relatives, they're always fighting, saying nasty things to each other, and he feels disgusted by it, but he can't leave at the moment. Well, that's just how things are, and his body reacts to his nose. How? I don't like these relationships. I don't accept them. I don't want to breathe the same air as these people. When he does the practice, by the end of it, he even starts to breathe. Yes, he still has some inflammation, some swelling, but he starts to breathe. After a while, everything goes away. Not only does his nose clear up, but he also starts to relate to them differently. Not from his past trauma, but from reality. Well, yeah, these people might say something, but that's their business. What do I have to do with it anyway? I'm actually here for completely different reasons, you know? By the way, this is a really important point. When we get stuck in life between black and white, it feels like we can't change anything in our lives. So, who here is allergic to what? Write it down. Who in your life are you allergic to? That's right, we're working through allergies, working through childhood illnesses. Yes, childhood psychosomatics. And at the end, in the 10th lesson, I give you a universal practice to work through your specific symptom that's bothering you right now. There's a step-by-step protocol there on how to get out of this state. I've developed this protocol over 10 years. Which steps you need to take, and which ones you absolutely shouldn't take, so you don't end up going in circles. That's the kind of practicum it is, 10 days. Every practice hits the mark, right on target, as they say, exactly where it's needed. React, share your emotions, these are awesome techniques. Would you like to learn these techniques? Once again, on the 1st of the month, sales for the practicum don't believe it? Check it out open. I rarely run it. The last time was a year and a half ago, and I don't have plans to do it again soon. This is, first of all, the most affordable product. The cost is $14,990, right? Absolutely anyone can afford it. Plus, I can let you split it into 2 payments. So set yourself a reminder to make it in time on the 1st. Everyone will have a mentor. It's a month-long program. Once again, Psychosomatics isn't just about thinking about something, right? Vadim, what do you mean, thinking about something? You should always think about something good in life. But just thinking about it won't solve the situation. But if you actually do the practice, if you work through it with your mentor, talk everything out, that's when your state will change. That's when diagnoses are lifted, surgeries get cancelled, and a person starts to really live. A person starts to breathe. It's literally a completely different state. I have a huge number of testimonials after this course where people say, I didn't understand before, but I wasn't really living. I was constantly afraid. Things kept falling apart for me, one thing after another. I thought, well, that's normal. Everyone my age goes through this. But now I realize, no, that's not normal. There's nothing wrong with me. I can actually feel okay. My relationships have improved, first and foremost with myself, and also with my partner, with my husband. That's what this is all about. So, if you have any questions about the practicum, write to me and I'm ready to answer your questions. There you go. Irina writes, I told an acquaintance to go to hell with a special kind of feeling, and my allergy went away, yes. See how well that worked, right? Sometimes that really helps. Why? Because you admitted your feelings, you acknowledged your emotions. But that doesn't mean you should go around telling people off, of course. But you need to defend your boundaries gently, in a healthy way, like an adult. Awesome, thank you for sharing. An allergy to costume jewelry. You didn't have it when you were younger. What does youth have to do with it? Youth has nothing to do with it in this case. Look, an allergy to costume jewelry. By the way, we have a lot of feedback from people who have suffered for decades. Allergies to cats, to eyelash extensions. For example, one of our lash artists wrote us a thank you note. She's a lash technician. And she says, Vadim, this is my livelihood. This is how I make money, but I have a terrible allergy. I break out in these awful blisters all over. I just can't work. I can't breathe. She came to us, went through the treatment. Now she does lashes with no more triggers at all. So you see, jewelry is just a certain trigger for your psyche that reminds you of a specific situation from your past. That's why we simply do my step-by-step trance practice to recall that unpleasant situation and rewrite it, so it no longer controls you. I mean, really, why should there be an allergy to jewelry? It's just jewelry. What's the connection here? To wasps. What are wasps? An allergy to wasps? Wasps. I don't know what that is. Someone especially sexy. That's the thought that comes to mind. An allergy to especially sexy men? Then you need to work on your femininity, right? A little humor for you all. Alright. Is it possible to have a fear of an allergic reaction, even though I've never had an allergy, but I'm afraid to eat a lot of things and have given up everything because I'm scared? Oh. That's a textbook case. It's good that you wrote about this. Look, you have a fear of allergies, but no actual allergy. This means that while you were, say, eating a chocolate bar, someone opened up your skull, poured a bunch of nonsense into your head, closed it back up, and walked away like nothing happened. And now I'm afraid of allergies. Yes, that's the kind of humor I'm giving you. What does this mean? It's suggestion. If we're afraid of something we don't know, it means you've read or learned somewhere that certain foods are especially dangerous, that they cause special types of allergies. And all of that got ingrained in your subconscious. And now you start fearing things you never used to be afraid of. So, first of all, who put that idea in your head, right? Second, the second point is very important. It means I'm afraid of someone else's experience. Someone suffered from allergies, maybe relatives, acquaintances, friends. So I take someone else's experience and make it my own. But what if there is no allergy? Well, just no. What if it's just a physical reaction that you can actually change? Let me tell you a story about a woman. She and her child went to the river to swim. She wakes up in the morning, completely red, covered in hives. She went swimming in the river in the summer, as they say. Hello, village life. But at first, her immediate reaction was, it's an allergy. What? Who? Where? What happened? Then she gives herself a little slap on the cheeks. Okay, calm down. Where am I? Right now, I'm studying with the dean. So what does that mean? What? There's no allergy. How could there not be? Then why did I break out all over in these hives? What happened yesterday? I start doing my allergy practice. I remember that yesterday they went to, that river, yeah. She originally felt disgusted. She didn't want to swim there. But that feeling, that emotion passed. And somehow she suppressed it, didn't even notice. That happens, it's normal. And she slipped into that state, you see? And today, there's an allergic reaction. She does the practice, and she already feels better. A couple of days, everything goes back to normal. No pills, no medication, nothing needed. Why? This is my body. This is my skin. These are my organs. That means I control them. Why should I put ointment on them? Why should I do anything to them? It means I need my own reaction first and foremost. You just reminded me of another story. This one is really top-notch, just great. So, this is about one of our students. She was just so happy with us, saying how amazingly Psychosomatics works. Let me tell you a story. So, she was somewhere in Bali. I don't know, maybe Thailand. Somewhere warm, basically. She rented herself a little house there. And of course, there are always neighbors nearby. It's not like it's a house in the middle of the desert. There are people around. And the first thing was, she started having hearing problems. Her ears hurt. And she wondered, what is it that I don't want to hear? That's just nonsense. She read some book or something, right? But then she starts working with us in the course and realizes that every day there's this music playing nearby, really persistent. Yeah, it's not like it's killing you, but it just keeps getting to you. You think, I paid a bunch of money for this. I'm here, I want peace. I want all this nature. That's what I want, right? And instead, you know, they're throwing a disco party for me. She works through it, and suddenly, first of all, her hearing comes back. It's a great story, really cool. The second thing she tells us. So, she was living with her boyfriend, and his friend came to visit. So, this guy, he has a girlfriend. But he came here to relax without her. It's just like some kind of romance story. Sit down, pour yourself some tea, and keep listening. Seriously, it's a real-life story. I mean, come on. So this guy, and then in the evening, he went out somewhere for a walk. Well, where to? At resorts, people go out for walks, as they say. Let your imagination fill in the rest. He comes back at night. Well, not at night, in the morning, completely red, saying, I have an allergy. I'm dying. I can't breathe. You know, in those countries where there are no pharmacies, no hospitals, where you can't just call someone and have them come to help you. There's nothing like that there. It's the jungle. Who are you going to call? Hello? Yeah, the only thing that'll come running is some monkey. This is not the case. He's freaking out about everything. I'm going to die here. Son, this is the end for me. And so on. She's watching all this. She's a grown woman. She's not 13 years old. She understands, well, the guy, he has a girlfriend, right? He came, had some fun with someone, probably partied, showed up with some girl, and now he's overwhelmed with guilt. And she tells her boyfriend, well, you know, most likely it's psychosomatic with him. He's just blaming himself. So go talk to him. He's working himself up over there. He's already writing his will. The guy's a mess. She says to him, listen, maybe you're just overwhelmed with guilt? And he's like, yes. How do you know? Everyone's like, she's a fortune teller or something. She tells him, that's just how it is. You need to understand, it's psychosomatic. You're not actually sick, you're fine. You just fell into a deep sense of guilt and shame. That's why you're reacting this way. You're all red, like a tomato. And he's like, yeah, exactly. What should I do? She gives him my practice from the course. Here, go listen to Vadim, basically. He listens to it. So, he arrived there at night, right? In the morning, He wakes up feeling normal and energetic. That's it. Death is cancelled. Doctors are cancelled. He's energetic and cheerful. Everything's good for him. What a cool story. This is a real-life story. I didn't make this up. I'm telling you seriously. Drop some emojis if you liked Vadim's acting. The stories. This is how psychosomatics really saves lives. Vadim's practices. Because if it weren't for that girl, if she hadn't studied with me, then that's it. The guy would have at least developed an anxious personality type, right? He would have been constantly overthinking things. Oh God, I have an allergy. I'm never going on vacation again. Where to? Bali, Thailand, or where? Because I'm allergic to this region, to these. What is it? What is he eating there? Bananas? What else do people eat in warm countries? I don't even know. There's no need to be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid of food. Don't be afraid of people. Don't be afraid of life. You just need to have the tools to work on yourself, the skill to work with yourself. That's such a great story. As they say, just one practice, but it changes so many lives. There you go. Let's move on to more questions. Let's do another 2 hours. My nose has been stuffed up for 4 years. Olechka. It's not that my nose is stuffed. It's that there's some situation in my life with someone I don't want to breathe the same air with, whose relationships stink, something I don't like, something I haven't accepted for 4 years. Olechka, this way. What is this about? Okay, let me answer. Hello? Why might someone have an allergic reaction to citric acid, oranges, or lemons since the age of 3? Could it be that the mother was irritated by some situation during pregnancy while she was eating a lemon? It's possible. It's possible. Here, you need to go and try my practice, and you'll see the root cause, yes. There's no need to guess here. You just need to do the practice. Second, you write, my irritation about their relationship, their attitude toward me. Neither the mother nor the father has any allergies at all. The son has had seborrhea for 6 years, scaly patches on his head. So, the child has scaly patches on his head. That's your story. The child, he doesn't yet have stressful situations that his body will need to protect itself from. He is in the family. He is immersed in its atmosphere. So you wrote correctly. This is your irritation. Right. What is it? Who strokes us on the head? Parents. Parents. I think so, yes. You, forgiveness, parents, the practical exercise. The second practice was written for you. Cheerful me. Thank you, Elisaveta. And I sometimes feel kind of sad. So, well, look, Yulechka, about the Don't Believe, but Verify workshop. It's a month-long course, 2 lessons per week. 10 practices that absolutely everyone needs. A month of support from a curator. And I let you download the practices. They'll stay with you. Vadim isn't stingy. Vadim is kind. That's why I'm telling you, set reminders. Sales will open on the 1st. And this course will sell out quickly, because our main resource is the curators. It's not just some course you buy and maybe watch someday when pigs fly. This is practice, right? The curator gets involved. You work through your traumas. You forgive your parents. You accept yourself. You unload all your fears. You are rewriting programs. It's a deep, month-long process. Who you are before and after that month. It's like 2 different people. For example, a child has had psoriasis on their legs since they were 1 year old. So, it's not the child's story, it's your story. A conflict, right? What's there? Separation. So, Alia answered me here. Will she admit it or not? Yes, one more time. For those who missed it, on the 1st of the month, registration opens for the practicum Believe. Or rather, don't just believe, check for yourself. Right. So why did you call it that? Not because you know. Vadim is just telling you about psychosomatics. No, these are specific practices. You work through childhood traumas, forgiving your parents, accepting yourself, releasing fears related to illness, and you work on all your allergies. What else? Childhood psychosomatics, right? The most important lesson, not yet mentioned, since I'm a bodywork specialist. If you didn't know, I'm a bodywork specialist. I practice massage, osteopathy, and applied kinesiology. I know everything about fascia, about anatomy, about physiology. I know about things like scars and how they can ruin our lives. Who here? Raise your hand if you have had, or used to have, yes, an abdominal surgery. That is, a C-section, appendix removal, gallbladder removal, or if they cut you open for something, looked around, and then stitched you back up. So, any abdominal surgery, or, for example, who here has had a hysterectomy, and you have problems, something hurts, your lower back, your head, your shoulder, maybe you get shooting pain in your heel, or you have some kind of discomfort that no one really knows how to treat. Maybe you've tried going somewhere, seen different people, and everyone says, who knows what's hurting? Everything seems like it should be fine, but it's not clear what's hurting. No one has a crowbar. Who has experienced this? There was a C-section, right? Olechka is writing. I really didn't want to think about it. So, when you come to me for a month, you pay the fee and you get personal guidance. You no longer have to find time. You no longer have to, create the right conditions. That's it, you come in. Your mentor gets involved, and you work for a whole month. In 1 month, you'll accomplish more than you would in a year, even if you were going to personal therapy. Why? Because it's a really intensive month of work. So, the cause of your pain might not be psychosomatic, and it might not be because you sit too much or don't walk enough, but because of scars. The mechanics are very simple. Look, our body is made up of different layers. Here's an example from me. Okay, so there's a shirt, a t-shirt, maybe something else under the t-shirt, like your skin, for example. It's the same with the body. What is it? Skin, subcutaneous fat, fascia, muscles, and so on. There's a lot going on. Now imagine, for example, a C-section. All the layers were cut, the shirt, the t-shirt, and so on. Everything was cut through. They opened it up, did something inside, then closed it and stitched it up. But now all the layers have been sewn together. Now imagine if I sewed the t-shirt like this. I wouldn't be able to move the same way anymore. And if I also sewed the skin, then that's it. This shirt would move wherever I go. So what does that lead to? Of course, a person doesn't die from this. Yes, everyone has these scars. A lot of people do, and there's nothing unusual about it. But day after day, this scar keeps pulling all the fascia toward itself. Bodywork specialists know this. Who are they? People who work with their hands. Bodywork specialist, osteopath, now psychosomatic specialist. But before, yes, I worked as an osteopath. So the first thing, when someone comes in and complains to you, they've got this and that going on, and you see a scar, you grab that scar and start working with it. And all the person's symptoms go away. Why? Because everything revolves around that scar. There are two aspects when it comes to these scars. The first is a physiological process, or actually, I'd even say that's probably the second one. And the first one, really, is a psychological process. Because every scar, every surgery, even a C-section, or any kind of procedure, it's a stress. I mean, is it pleasant to have someone cut you with a knife and then stitch you up? Who would find that pleasant? No one enjoys that. It's always a physical, psychological, and even energetic stress. And there's this concept called trauma memory. Meaning, that trauma settles into the scar. A scar might be tough not because something was stitched up poorly, but maybe because there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of emotion in it. It's the story of your life, right? And I actually have a separate lesson on somatopsychology. I talk about scars, removed organs, and I share practices on how to release that block so the body can relax. It's like some kind of magic happens. First of all, we actually have photos where students say, wow, my scar is 10 years old. The color of the scar changed. It was always pink, and now it's just pale, flesh-colored. Awesome. Why does that happen? The tension goes away, blood flow improves, the scar becomes softer, and that density disappears. But most importantly, those mysterious pains in your lower back, shoulders, head, or heels go away because your body relaxes. I'm sharing this practice because I'm a bodywork specialist. I know how it works. This is extremely important. And if you combine it with working through childhood traumas, forgiveness, self-acceptance, and resolving conflicts, your whole life really starts to change. In just a month, you'll start thinking differently, feeling differently, even breathing differently. Your breathing pattern will change. You know, nowadays we have this kind of topic. We're breathing wrong there. We're going to the bathroom wrong there. We're eating wrong there. It's like we're doing everything wrong. You wake up and feel like an idiot, like you're doing everything wrong. But my perspective is different, friends. We're actually doing everything right, but we just have defense mechanisms. Our psyche protects us from things that, in reality, aren't even there. And that's why we overeat. We eat too much, our bodies tense up, and because of that we can't breathe, we can't move properly. And when we release that pain, suddenly the diaphragm starts working well, and we can breathe easily. Why is that? Because it already knows how to breathe. It doesn't need to be taught. It's the same as trying to teach your heart how to beat. What kind of nonsense is it to say that we're breathing incorrectly? Right. Your pelvic floor lifts. Your hip joints start working differently. Your spine starts working differently. Because you no longer need to hold on to those blocks. Who are you holding a grudge against? Who do you hate in your life? Do you agree with me? Drop a plus sign or a smiley. Yes, Vadim, that makes sense. Or be honest and right. Vadim, this is nonsense. What are you talking about? We need surgeries. Cut everything out. Throw it away. And teach us all how to do everything in life. Yeah. Helena is writing about scars. Of course. Well, you're on top of things. And in our annual program, there's a detailed lesson in the systems. How to relieve pain, how to deal with scars, and so on. You'll get to those soon. Agreed? Yeah. And just remember a moment in your life when, you switch to a positive resource, like when you go out into nature, or someone tells you, hey, you won a lottery, an apartment in downtown Bistrova, for example, or maybe your husband says, honey, I got us a trip to the Maldives. We can leave as soon as tomorrow. Let's go right. Or something nice like that happens, and you immediately feel, oh, this is so good, and you just relax. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know what you mean. Or, for example, relatives, my dad jokes about this. Some relatives say, come visit us, and so on. And he's like, ugh, I don't want to go. My dad is kind of a bit of a sociopath. Like, he's a sociable person, but because he interacts with people so much, he gets burned out, and sometimes he just wants to shut himself off from everyone. Although, I guess everyone feels that way sometimes. And he says, ugh, I don't want to go and talk to everyone. Plus, he doesn't drink alcohol, and everyone else does, so that makes socializing even harder. And he says, I kept walking around all day, and then I texted them and said, oh, I can't make it. Something came up. I can't come. And he says, what a relief it was. I said, yeah, life is good. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to force yourself to do things you don't want to do. That really resonates. Here, Elena writes, sometimes I want to kiss my own hands for buying your course. Awesome. Thank you for your feedback. If you study with me, yes, please write as well. All right. Does that make sense? Do you agree? Look, a keloid scar just appeared out of nowhere. So when we're talking about this kind of scar, not a post-surgical one, but a keloid, that's a sign of psychosomatics. In other words, there was tension there. Certain mental patterns were running, yes, for a certain period of time. So you need to know where it is and what feelings or emotions are stuck there. Now look, the mom is having trouble breathing in the mornings. Is that also related to psychosomatics? Well, of course. So she wakes up in the morning, right? But still, she should get checked by a doctor, right? She should have her kidneys checked, her heart checked, right? It could be a result of some existing health issues. But if the doctor says everything is fine and can't find anything wrong, then what does that mean? It means that mom gets up. Well, let's be honest. Let's look at the adults in our lives, our parents, right? My parents, your parents. We more or less understand what worries them, don't we? Responsibility, right? They have a lot of fear, a lot of this hyper-responsibility to help everyone, to save everyone, to stand strong in this world. Right? Of course, that affects the body. Well, of course it does. Here, Zoya writes, inflammation in the female organs. Right, the ovaries. What does inflammation in the female organs mean? It means an unresolved loss. Who in your life have you not let go of? First, it could be an abortion, a miscarriage, maybe a relative passed away, maybe a breakup, or maybe I'm afraid that someone will leave. So this unprocessed fear, this feeling that with the departure of someone, I lost a part of myself. And now my ovaries are still trying to compensate for that. What does this bring up for you? And in our workshop, you actually work through this by addressing childhood trauma. You work through it using techniques for mourning and letting go, as well as techniques for forgiveness and self-acceptance. Now fibroids. Fibroids, right? So look, when we talk about fibroids, it's about powerlessness. Like I'm not capable, I can't do it. This is Vika, right? Or who else? Hala, right? What is it that I can't do right now? What is this about in my life? And what am I blaming myself for? And very often, it's connected to things like not being able to get pregnant, build a family, give birth, carry a child, or provide for a child, right? What is this powerlessness connected to in your case? NG, you can write to me directly. Everything resonates. Zoya, is that clear? There are techniques for this, but it needs to be worked through. I've been working in psychosomatics for 10 years, and these are topics that we can really work through quite easily. Fibroids, cysts, right? These are things that are actually easy to work through. You need to address it. It won't just go away on its own. It's not just about thinking about something. It's work. It's about letting out those tears, that pain. You can't do it by yourself. Well, just imagine trying to go back and remember something. How are you supposed to do that on your own? No. But when you have the Dean, who's an expert in the field of the unconscious, I've spent 3 years studying at the French Institute of Ericksonian Hypnotic Hypnosis. I know how to gently guide someone into a trance. I know how to gently bring that trauma out of the body. I spent 3 years learning this, yes. Together with a mentor, with support. You need to have someone by your side whom you can rely on, someone you can talk to. So, let's talk about acne. Yes, it's been mentioned a few times. What does acne mean for us? First, it's about a feeling of shame, about repressed sexuality. Yes, about not accepting yourself. In other words, I feel unattractive, I want to hide, or maybe relationships seem dangerous to me. You need to explore this feeling of shame. And what else is it about? Contact. Again, I feel misunderstood, unappreciated, unloved. I lack warmth and support from my family and loved ones, since we're talking about the skin. And someone mentioned skin cancer on the face. Look, skin cancer on the face, that's an intense, deep conflict. And my approach to psychosomatics is a mix of different methodologies that I studied. For example, I took the theoretical foundation from Dr. Hamer. Dr. Hamer, first of all, is an oncologist, a doctor who practiced classical medicine. And one day, when he was diagnosed with cancer himself, he started to wonder, why did he get sick? What happened? And 6 months before he got sick, he experienced intense stress. His son died, and he developed testicular cancer. Right, and my wife has ovarian cancer. It was quite a coincidence, and he knitted this thing. He cured himself, and then began helping his patients. In fact, he was the one who mapped out this chart of organ systems for us. So, first of all, the theoretical foundation comes from Dr. Hamer. Second, there's classical psychology, working with childhood traumas, using Ericksonian humanistic hypnosis to work with the unconscious, NLP, family systems, and techniques for working with your own unconscious. So basically, everything I've learned in my life, I combine it all together. And in some areas, I've developed my own methods. That's exactly why it works. You can't just read something theoretical and expect things to change. Is that clear? So what resonated with you? Love mentioned the face. So what kind of conflict is this? I didn't finish explaining, did I? I want to protect myself from something. This is the conflict of attack, assault, or defilement. Someone threw dirt at you, defiled you, attacked you, humiliated you. It's very intense. And since the face isn't just a face, it's not only about contact, it's also about my status. Yes, the face is about my identity. Yes, Yulechka, everything is working. Thank you, Yulechka. Doesn't that resonate with you, Anastasia? A myoma is a sign of powerlessness. Where in your life do you feel powerless right now? Look in that direction. About what? So, what is it that I can't do? What am I incapable of? And what do I blame myself for? Where is the powerlessness, Anastasia? When did the first myoma appear? What happened before that? A breakup, right? Or did someone devalue you? What happened? A thyroid nodule. That's the thyroid gland. There are a few conflicts here. The first is a conflict of speed. I'm afraid I won't make it in time. I'm afraid I can't handle it. So here, the powerlessness is connected to time. Speed is the first thing. Second, after all, it's the throat. It's about self-expression. In other words, I don't have the right to speak. I don't have the right to assert myself. It means I'm not important. No one takes me into account. Right. And there's also a chunk conflict here, meaning I swallow these emotions and feelings, but I don't agree with them. Yes. Friends, thank you for today's live stream. Be sure to write now what useful things you took away from this live stream. We will have another live stream together. Be sure to keep an eye out for announcements. Once again, I want to remind you that on the 1st of the month, registration opens for the sales of the Don't Believe, Check for Yourself workshop. This is a course I haven't launched in a year and a half. It's a real classic, truly one of our top courses, which has helped people get rid of really strong, serious illnesses. Lives were simply transformed. Those 10 lessons I mentioned, you'll get those top ones. So what is it exactly? It's a month-long program. Lessons are released twice a week. It's a good, steady pace. You'll have a mentor assigned to you who will work with you. Plus, you'll be able to download the practice exercises. In other words, it's impossible not to change. The only way you wouldn't is if you just disappear. Everyone changes. Everyone gets results. Yes, that's it. Make sure to really process what you learned today. Be sure to message me directly. Vadim, there was such an interesting topic. Or Vadim, I didn't understand this topic. You said something, but it didn't resonate with me. Maybe you could explain it in different words, okay? Write to me, don't be shy. I'm always available. I'll always help out. If I don't reply right away, well, I'll answer in a day or two. So I'm open, just write to me. Be sure to share this broadcast. You can see there are buttons to share with your family and friends. Because a lot of people still live with the mindset that we can't change our health, that we just have to accept illnesses, that we have to accept a life filled with anxiety and worry. No, sometimes, just by forwarding this to someone, you can change their life. Someone wrote today, I think, or maybe it was something else, that a lot of people come to me through recommendations. A friend or a relative says, just go see Vadim, listen to him, just listen. You're not obligated to do anything. And especially since, well, the broadcast is free. Come on. How do you join the course? Sales will open on the 1st of the month. Set yourself a reminder for 10 a.m. Moscow time. Yes. The program costs $14,000. Plus, you can split the payment into 2 parts. This is the most affordable program. It's a great way to start getting into psychosomatics right now. And after that, maybe you'll move on to the year-long program if you really want to become a pro, an expert. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, amazing day. See you soon.